How's it, everyone? Fellow 1/6ers from the groups, other hobbyists who are going to follow to see other projects that we've got going, totally unrelated to figures. But this is another segment of Project Legacy. This is, as we've said in the first part, that we're trying to chronicle from day one of the accident to our family, loved ones, and children's children. So, right, I'm going to hand you over to Grantus, who is Muerte.
Muerte. So, yeah, I think the last episode we sort of gave you quite a good overview, and I think with this one I'd like to sort of kick off where all the bustle or all the family and everybody has left the hospital and you're on your own, and I think, yeah, if you can kick off from there, that'll be
Okay, so
a good place to start.
we explained in the first video, I'd been hit by the car, everyone had got to the hospital. I still didn't know what had happened to Sue, Alexis. That's for my son. Yeah, I still didn't know. No, well, I think my mom and dad and everyone knew, but they were told not to tell me until maybe better news was received, because they were still working on it, and they had me. Now, I can't remember being in and out with the morphine. Morphine didn't really knock me out per se. It's funny how I was still so awake, and yeah. Anyway, all the hubbub had died down. They pushed me into a little office off the main entrance to the hospital I was in. I was in the men's part of the hospital. It's behind the main hospital. That is the women's hospital. That's where all the ICU and everything like that is in that hospital. So now I'm in the men's. There's no equipment, for aftercare. But anyway, so I'm still on this gurney. I'm pushed in. It's about 10 o'clock now, and I've told my mom and dad and my aunt Sheila, no, please go home. And my mom refused, but I said, no, go home, because they were still at work. They still had work to do, And I mean, my dad, when you hear how hard a grafter he was, and still doing 2 hours driving a night, every night, to bring my mom to the hospital to see me. But anyway, I'm lying there. Eventually, an orderly comes in and says, okay, I've got to take you up to theatre. So now I'm in theatre, but I'm in the corridor within the theatres, and you're watching all of this shit going on. I'm trying to catch doctors' attention, because I still don't know what's happened to Sue. No one's told me a thing. I don't even know what's happening to me, never mind what's happening to Sue. My legs are both smashed, I don't know how badly. So eventually they took me into theatre at 12 o'clock at night. So I think there must have been emergencies before me, traffic accidents, life and death, things like that. But yeah, it took me in at 12, and then it was the next day. I remember waking up early in the morning when they were doing their rounds. Not doctors' rounds, just the nurses coming in and pulling this and taking notes and the whole move. And the first thing I did was look down to see if I had my legs, because I heard talk of amputation when I was in the theatre.
Yeah, but also in theatre, just before you went under, you also asked them about where was Sue and what was happening with Sue. Nobody was telling you. So nobody was telling you. So you completely terrified when you going under. And then wake up after the op.
I think terrifying's maybe the wrong word. I think I was scared, but I had to hold it together, otherwise I would have been, what's that word beginning with an F? What's that word? So, I had, because if I didn't hold it together, once everybody leaves, there's only you in the room. There's only you in the room. and it's difficult, man, to try and explain how your whole life in a second is just transformed into this. This moment in time, I'm in bed, I've got both my legs, I'm happy. The right leg was just in plaster, the old plaster, you know, the old white plaster Paris, it was in one of those. Not the new green and blue ones you got afterwards. I'm trying to think what that stuff was called. It was almost like a carbon fiber.
I thought it was almost fiberglass at one stage.
No, it's not. It's not. Yeah. It's almost like a carbon fiber. The new plaster cast they put on you. Anyway, I get to find out later that they put a nail in from my knee to my ankle. A nail is a long titanium rod that then gets fixed with 2 screws at the knee, 2 screws at the ankle. My right leg, they put in plaster Paris and wrapped up, and all they'd done was seal up the wound as tightly as possible for now, and I was going back into theatre that day to re-establish what they were going to do with the leg, because they'd saved the leg the night before, they'd managed to get a pulse, I don't know how, and once you got that pulse, the leg can live, because it's still pumping blood through the muscles, and the bone structure is getting blood supply, and because I lost 10 centimeters of bone from that. Yeah, that first day, you all got there about lunchtime, I think, I remember my mum and dad being there, because she'd phoned first crack of dawn in the morning, and it just so happened she got hold of Dr. Lawrence, the young doctor who had operated on my leg the night before. And she'd met him the night before because he'd popped in to see me before they ducked home. We didn't know that was going to be the doctor, but he'd... You see, you forget where you're going. There's so much info you're trying to tell people.
I'll try and keep us on point, but I think you were going in exactly the right direction. I think you're really getting into the nitty-gritty of being alone and sort of being in a place where you're going, wow, you wake up in the morning, your legs are there, but you actually don't know what's wrong with them, and then you start your day in a hospital where the environment is prehistoric.
It's a bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Spartan.
Oh, Maximus.
It's like being in Sparta. My mum and dad brought me sheets through and pillows. If you look in some of the photos, I've got my own sheets on the bed, George, because they were in short supply at the time. The nurses, they were good. They were good to a certain degree.
They could do what they could do.
Once you got into standard aftercare, that's where it started to fail. Because they only had so much to work with, and you felt sorry for the sisters and the matrons on duty, because the nurses that they're getting are under it was this new, can I say race? New race coming in, and they were now the nurses, and I had the distinct feeling they didn't like whites very much. The nurses, it was at that time in South Africa's changeover. Whites, were the new underdog, eh? So I remember waking up to that, being the only white in the ward, government hospital. But when you see your mom and dad, or you see a mate come through that door, it's like miracles do happen, eh? And you're looking at them and you think, oh, fuck, a familiar face. A familiar face amongst the blackness. Because I still I didn't know what was happening. No one, the nurses, that's why I actually got onto the nurses. Sorry, I totally digressed there. The nurses wouldn't tell me. The sister wouldn't tell me, even though they knew they didn't want me to fail in my health, They just kept saying she's being treated, she's being worked on. And I think it was only on the third day, because I'd bore you with the story of the operations in between those 2 days to save the leg, because I was in and out to save this right leg over those 2-3 days. Eventually woke up, fixator in this one just to keep the leg rigid. It wasn't the fixators that they would use later on in recovery. Yeah, it was just hard, man, being in that hospital on your own. You can't talk to anyone. You know, it's...
There's one instance in particular I wanted to talk about, and that is you getting moved from hospital A to hospital B across a motorway. And this is really soon after you I think at that stage you got a fixator and you got a pin.
Yeah.
Both legs you're not allowed to put any pressure on.
No.
Yeah,
No.
so
It was I think it was about 8 days into the accident. Sorry, I'm going to dry mouth off my meds. And I should
Give me 1 second. Let me get it.
I should have mints. No, Grant, I've got you. Excuse me. Excuse me while I take my mints. So now, by now I know obviously Sue is in a coma. She's in ICU, touch and go, you know. So they come to say to me one Sunday, no, it wasn't, I can't remember what day it was. Would you like to go see your wife? So I thought, oh, okay, yeah, no, that'll be great, thank you, yeah. So I see these 2 sisters come into the ward and they pull in a commode. Now, I don't know if you know what a commode is. It's what they use for patients to transport to the toilet or to put alongside a bed and put a bedpan in, because all it is, it's a chair on stupid wheels with a hole in the chair so people can poo through it into a bedpan if they can't make it to the toilet when they transport them, or they can't, whatever, for whatever reasons, right?
Yeah. A really useful apparatus.
Think of this when the next you walk into hospital and have a look at those commodes and try and pull one. No, because there was no wheelchairs.
Yeah.
I'm in the teaching hospital for the University of South Africa, Pretoria academic, and there's no wheelchairs. So right, now check them, pull this commode in. You can only pull it backwards and it's extremely difficult to steer. And when they moved me from, it's just all so surreal. When they moved me from the bed to this commode, I thought they were taking me to the toilet, and I'm trying to say, I don't need the toilet. No, nurse, I don't need the toilet. Then the other one, beaming smiles, comes across with a wooden crutch. I was thinking, I can't put any weight on these legs. What? They haven't even explained to me what's happening. Next thing I know, the one's got this leg with a fixator in, and she pushes the crutch under my butt, and the fat end is sticking out with this leg on top of the crutch. And I was in, the slightest movement was hurt. It was horrible, because the bone still, there's nothing there. The bone is, they hadn't fixed that yet. So yeah, and then I'm in this commode and they start pulling me backwards. They take me into the lift, and by this time I'm almost in a flat panic. I don't know where I'm going, eh?
I'll tell you anything. I'll tell you
Eventually,
anything.
a nurse gets in the lift and she explains to me in English what's going on. They're taking me to see my wife. And I said, what, in a commode? On a commode? Yeah, there's no wheelchairs. Would you still like to go? So I said, well, what choice have I got? Yeah, please. Little did I know they were going to pull me out the hospital main entrance on this commode, through everyone, onto a main street. I'm in hospital gown and that, my drips are all over me. I'm on this commode, my leg up on a bloody crutch. And they pulling me across this road. And there's traffic, I've just been hit by a car. So I don't know if I had PTSD or what, but these cars are zooming past and I'm just saying, okay, just hold on, Dale. You're going to see Sue. You're going to see Sue. Hold on there.
Yeah.
I was shitting every bump hurt. They were taking me over curbs. And eventually we get to the ward where Sue is, ICU. And I'm in such a state I can't even talk. I'm in such pain. And they just drag me to the foot of Sue's bed and leave me there. I couldn't even touch her. I couldn't get to her to touch her.
Yeah,
No, some of the aftercare was horrific, Was horrific.
I was laughing while you were telling that horrible story about going across the road, only because in my mind it was like the Froggo game.
Yeah.
You know, it's not crossing the traffic with a frog. It's mad that
No,
in that
pure
state to
madness,
be dragged
eh?
across the road like that.
Pure
And
madness.
for nobody to have just common sense and go health and safety wise, this is wrong, or just common sense.
In the first
Would be
6 weeks of that accident, I had an abscess on my tooth. And there's only one doctor on call for the whole hospital of my side and the woman's side, which is the ICU side with general wards for women and children and stuff like that. So no one can prescribe anything for you for this abscess, and you're going mad. There's another story related to that, which is quite a funny one. But the next day, that morning, they said, okay, we'll take you to the dentist. So I thought, lacquer, again, on the commode, down to the ambulance, put in the ambulance, and this ambulance only starts acting like a taxi on the way to the dentist. Now, taxi in South Africa are these combis that drive all over and offer cheap transport for the blacks, and whites, South Africans, I should say, nowadays, to get them to and fro from work. It was an excellent way of commuting. But the black ambulance guy, he's not supposed to be doing it. And they picking up, one of them sat on me.
Yeah.
A big mama sat on me. While I'm in it was only like 3 weeks into I'm still a broken man, eh? And I've got these people crowding in the back of the ambulance while I go to the dentist.
No, it's
It's
incredible.
unreal, eh?
Incredible, yeah.
It's unreal.
It's so shocking that you would actually you can't believe that it's happening. But I think around this, yeah, sounds like you're in the middle of deepest, darkest Africa, but you're actually not. You've
No.
actually got really professional stuff around you.
Yeah,
and it's
the doctors were, they were great. The surgeons, there's no better. I mean, they teach students, doctors, but these are qualified doctors on how to do their specialties, be it bone disease, be it this, be it that. I mean, yeah, Pretoria Academy. Those first 6 weeks is really it's surreal what you see going on. People falling down the back of their beds. I remember old Madalla, an old man. He'd come in for something to do with his hips. There was a infection on one of his hips from a bone transplant. Anyway, he was a bit of a nuisance, but still, I mean, he's still a human being, eh? He'd fallen down the back of his hospital bed, so he's entangled now in the sheets, the pillows, these drip wires. He's like a puppet behind his bed. And all of us eventually wake up. It's like in the middle of the night, you know, and he's groaning away, and he's luckily he had the buzzer. I don't know how he held on to that.
it's your only lifeline.
2 nurses come through, they walk up to the bed, they see, turn no lights on, and turn the buzzer off and walk out.
Good grief.
So we're thinking they must be coming back now with someone to help this poor guy. But I mean, 2 of them could have done it. No, nothing. No one came. I pressed. They come to see me. What's wrong, Patient Innes, they used to call me, or Patient Dale. What's wrong, Patient Dale, Patient Innes?
And they're only coming to you because they're so used to getting stuff from you.
Yeah, I used to give them sweets and chocolates and biltong.
Yes,
and
yeah. So you're
all
buying your
sorts.
way into
because
their attention.
You have to.
Yes.
You have to. Unfortunately, in Africa, bribery is not considered corruption, especially with little white bribes like that. I mean, you know, And it's only when I called them, I said, please, I can't get any sleep because he's groaning, that they went to go help him.
Yeah.
Now I don't know if that's because they were causer and he was Shona, so they were teaching him a lesson, or if they just didn't care, or if it was neglect, or what, But you've seen those stories all the time. Horrible stories. The Spakeman episode, that was a nightmare. I got this infection called Staphylococcus. It's a bone-eating infection. It's 2 types. You get the bone-eating one and you get the flesh-eating one. I was unlucky enough to get the bone-eating one. Usually comes from open wounds in supposedly a clean ward. I can't remember what they're called now. But
Sterile ward?
Yeah, sterile ward. You're supposed to, but anyway, I got Staphylococcus, and that was slowly but surely killing me. It was killing me. We'll have to stop there.